And welcome to Racing, Pacing, Chasing. It is Season 2, Episode 18. I'm Aaron Bain. Tonight we're joined by a very special guest, and we said we'd assemble a very talented panel, or you could say high-profile panel. And we'll start to our left, and we've got Chris Hartwig.
How are you, Aaron?
Chris, former board member, chairman of the board, and now prominent owner as well. Wayne Hill, leading driver, South Australia. We've got to my right, Toby Ryan, leading trainer, you could say, as well, and veterinarian. And then we've also got Ryan Hryhorec joining us as well, a leading trainer and driver of South Australia. We've certainly assembled a great panel tonight. We've got a very structured. We're going to try and keep to 5 minutes on each topic. We'll try and keep the timer going as best we can. But the way we're going to proceed tonight, we're going to talk firstly. I'm going to ask for one word on each, and we don't want this to be very negative, guys. We want to put our view across for the industry, and no doubt we'll get a lot of views this week on this show. But firstly, we're going to ask for state of affairs in one word, summary from each year. Then we're going to talk on 5 topics. So those 5 topics will be the rating system. We're going to throw to you, Chris, to open the batting on that. Prize money, Wayne, will be your topic, and we'll also all have comments on that. We'll discuss with Toby the breeding and yearling population as well, and also Ryan. Then we'll hand owner and horse numbers in the state. So certainly a few topics to cover, and then we want to end with one, you could say, brainwave idea from each of us to move forward over the coming 12 to 18 months. So firstly, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we'll open up with state of affairs in one word in South Australia. Chris?
Troubling.
Troubling?
I'd probably have to go with sad, Aaron, at the moment.
Sad. I'll go challenging.
Deflating.
Tough.
5 very descriptive words. That hopefully doesn't set and turn away too many viewers from tonight's show. But Chris, we're going to start with you with the national rating system, and you're on the board at the time when that come into play. So obviously how you see that back then, and also now the implications that's having on our state.
Sure. Well, I think at the time it was very much a HRA-driven initiative, and SA was very much a passenger. We did have some concerns. The major concerns are really around the pool of horses that we have here in South Australia, and I think systems like the rating system that we've got work well if you've got big pools of horses. And South Australia having a less than 300 number of horses just didn't really suit us. But secondly, we really felt that 3-year-olds were going to be disadvantaged through the system. I think that's proven to be the case. There have been some minor changes since for 3-year-olds, but it really defies logic. Then you have to get a horse, let's say a maiden 3-year-old 50 class rating horse. You have your first start. You could be against something that said 200 starts, won 24 races in sub 2 minutes 10 times in its life. That's a big ask for a maiden, I think. So there's some major problems. My biggest concern with the rating system is that it really discourages the ownership and breeding of young horses. As an owner that likes to buy them to yearling sale, and you have that hope and dream of them being a great horse, I think the rating system is definitely a deterrent for that.
And we discuss that later with the breeding and yearling sales, and you're right, and maybe I'll throw to you, Ryan, on that. You know, you've got a horse at the moment, Sports Chronicle, obviously starting his career as a rating 50. He wins 1 or 2, and you go over the border hopefully in the next month and win your bonus. You probably come back at 55. It gets hard quickly for those horses.
I mean, like you said, you win one here and you win one there, here and one there, and you get to a 55 or 56, and before you know it, you're into the old C2, C3 class very, very quickly. Yeah. It's just no incentive. I've never liked it from day one, and it just simply can't work here, in my opinion, because of all the numbers.
And on that, you've had a good history and relationship with Paul Brumby, a good owner of yours, with finding those maiden COs or even 3-year-old maidens, and very spacing, using the restricted race in the old front and the C grade, and you seem to can't do that now. And you were saying before the goalpost somewhat changed from before we're looking at 50s as COs, now it's down to as low as 40 and even 35s, and it's trying to find the right horse to bring to this state.
Yeah, so we had a system that we used to work to when we were finding them. Paul's really lost to that system, just can't work anymore. Really hard to find horses. Like you said, when the national rating system come in, like the 50 was like probably the old CO. That soon got to nearly 40. So when they rolled the new system out, you're looking for horses around 45 to 50. It's jumped another 5 points lower, and you just can't. We can't win. If I could win 6 races with a horse, I'm lucky to win 2 or 3 with it now. Yeah. It's just got really, really hard. Not only that, Paul's a perfect example. He hasn't bought a new horse for 12 months. Yeah. We'd buy 3 months. Yeah. It's just, worrying times.
And we'll get to that later with owner and horse numbers, because that'll be the main topic there on that rating system. And I think combining both what you said and just to add conversation, and Toby and Wayne jump in if you like after it. There's now HRSA are forcing to put too many restrictions on. No wins last 3 or no more than 2 wins last 5, and that's not a good look for horses. What people wanting to send horses, so I think that's nearly forcing our hand, if anything, to come up with our own rating system, similar to. And I said on the show last week, WA have their own system done on lifetime dollars, Queensland with the band racing, and Menangle as well. That's backing us into a corner, because nearly every race, and I talk, say, Anthony Robinson, Absolution, and Don't Need an Excuse. Now, we're encouraging him. He didn't have a race for his horse over the last 2 weeks. Now, Absolution goes around this week, but there was no way to. We don't want to have people not racing horses, is how I see it. Toby, Wayne, thoughts?
Basically, with the rating system, like if we were to adopt or attempt to adopt our own system, because we've been under the rating system now for, probably a good say maybe 6 months, or probably more now, really.
12 months.
12 months, yeah. What would we have to do to sort of, we would have to create our own system and put it at HRA or something like that, or is that something where we're stuck into now? Or
South Australia can do their own thing. You can run your own race. That's almost what Dave Thewen's attempting to do at the moment, by putting all these conditions. So through flaws of the system, whether it's Absolution or West Star Sam or whatever, the horses that have got, for want of a better word, beaten the handicapper, and no criticism on anyone that's done that. They've taken advantage of what the system is, but when a horse comes there as a 35 rating, he's trying to then come up with conditions to keep that horse out of the race, that he otherwise,
rather than saying this is the race you can race.
So he's trying to almost have a quasi SA system, but by excluding horses, we don't have the horse population again to do that, and then we're not getting races up. Getting 4 or 5 starts, and by trying to split, say, your 2-year-olds into 2-year-olds that have won a race and 2-year-olds that haven't, none of them race. Because the ones that haven't won a race don't want to go against the good ones, and the ones then that have won a race can't go against the other horses.
Brian, you want to jump in there?
We simply need to do something to attract horses. Our horse population is low. We need more horses. We need to go alone and do something that's left the field to try and attract more horses. And like you said, some people have done a terrific job to find these horses to beat the system, and our powers to be keep moving the goalposts on them, and they've got to stay home. So.
100%. Toby, anything you want to add before we move on to the next topic?
It's a hard position, the racing office. I think with the pool of horses they've got to work with, I actually think they do a terrific job in so many ways, because we're all looking to try and nominate in a race that we can win, and sometimes as trainers we probably have to accept that we're not going to win every race, and we just have to look at perhaps supporting the industry, playing the game a little bit. Maybe if it's not the right race, you might fluke winning it and be a happy surprise, but you might drop a point if you don't. So it's a tough position. But the biggest point I see, and I'm on the panel to talk about breeding and that later, and that is the start point of 2 and 3 year olds, and they adjusted the 2 year olds a touch, but 2, 3 and maiden 4 year olds, they're the ones that owe you the most. The maiden 4 year old, you've had it for 6 or 7 preps. It's a battler because it's taken that long to get it there. It's either a battler or it's had problems and high vet bills. And you come out of 50. It's unjust.
Ryan, before we go,
just on what Toby said, and in regards to dropping a point, that's another problem we have. We run 8 or 9 horses in the field, only 3 or 4 that drop a point, and one goes up. It's a lot in between.
And if we're running more 6-horse races, only one drops a point. So, all valid points. Now, Wayne, prize money. Now, you had a good comment on this, and filling your thunder, but we don't expect miracles, and I'll let that lead into you.
Yeah, basically, I don't think we're sort of overly greedy here in South Australia. I mean, we don't expect to be running for, say, 10 or 15 grand every race. I think we're pretty simple. I think we just want to make it financially viable for an owner to own a horse here and race his horse. I don't think the owners here expect us to be making a lot of money, just as long as they're paying their way and have a bit of fun. But realistically, they just can't put the state money up overnight, and everyone sort of understands that, I believe. But what are we doing to try and improve things? Obviously, we need probably a better product and so a more horse population, and therefore we can probably potentially get some better wagering. But definitely something we need to address and as I said, they haven't got the money there to put the stake money up overnight, but it's something we need to work to and make some changes. Definitely, so that does sort of potentially happen in the future.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. And again, talking offset before, Ryan, you mentioned about the 7 and the 4.5 and leading into there. And all these issues or topics linked to each other in a way, and we talk about horse numbers, but talk about the 7 and 4.5s. That
me personally, I love the 7 grand C fronts as old and 4 or 4.5 grand C fronts. And then we spoke off there, like Toby said, that was your rating system right there. If you were happy to win 7, if your horse wasn't good enough to win 7, you thought, okay, I've got to chop out and lose some prize money. It broke the better ones and their ordinary ones up. We race against the same pool of horses across the board now because the point for dollar ratio is the same for 3 or for 499 or 349, whatever we are.
Yeah.
We don't have any second tiers. We need to try and get a second tier of racing.
Yeah, and that may lead into that, or back to that last point of having that SA type model, whether it's back to the old CR system that may work, but with an S in front of it, an SA and an SR, or however that looks.
See Queensland do a similar thing, and they've made their own thing that suits for them. So why can't we?
Yeah,
I think we need a bit of hope on prize money. So I think everyone accepted when COVID occurred, there's going to be less wagering, and therefore prize money had to cut. But we really need some hope as to when we're going to get back to $7,000. I mean, I heard George on the radio on Saturday saying that the corporate turnover has been pretty good through this period. So hopefully the income is there. So I think the industry needs that hope.
Yeah.
And, we have to do the things that we know maximise wagering, and that's where the prize money. I think HRSA do a great job with the amount of money they get. They don't waste much, and they get it out to the industry. But it's full fields, even fields, Sky One.
Yeah.
You do those things, and that's where the wagering turnover comes from.
Toby? And
the wagering. I mean, we need to probably be on Sky as much as possible. So I worry that, Chris, you mentioned the corporate turnover had been reasonably good in the COVID period. Back to a couple of meetings a week, and borders threatening to open again. Is it going to cop another crash shortly?
Yeah.
And other sports coming up as well.
Yeah, footy getting going again. I mean, all the lads love punting on footy more so than horses. So I'm worried that we've got a kick in the backside coming up real shortly.
That's an interesting comment about the punting, because it's come up with the driver colours situation at the moment. Do we stick to drivers' colours, or we go back to that owners' trainers? And there's a petition circulating around at the moment, and the comment around, I think from Mr. Ross Neal, that the turnover's been up since the drivers' colours. Well, sorry, to me that links in with COVID as well, and there's not many other sports in the world to bet on other than racing at the moment. And
can I say, as I'm only really a punter now, so when I train horses, I've absolutely loved having drivers' colours.
And it's a contentious. I was going to bring it up after, but
and I know, Paul Cav's a great mate of mine, and he hates it because his colours aren't out there.
Yeah.
So I see both sides of the argument. But as a punter, I go, where's Rozzy in the race? Where's Danny? Where's Wayne? I can see it straight away.
As a punter, you want to back a driver, not a trainer. See, when I'm sitting at home and I'm watching around and the telly's on, and take Victoria, for example, and I'm watching a race and I see John Cowdo's colours, and now I've got to go, what's he driving? And got to get my phone out and have a look who trains it. Where before I'd go, Johnny Cowdo trains it, drives it because of his colours.
We've had another topic of discussion here. That's all right. We've had another topic of discussion because it is an interesting one. And my perspective of it, while we're on it, the colours topic, is that by the time we come onto coverage, say on Sky, in the pubs and they weren't open, isn't it too late to know, well, Wayne's driving, I think, number 3, or Ryan's on that one and see his colours? Like, I think then it's too late. Now, unless you're live betting, all right, Ryan's sitting one out, one back, right? He's the best chance here, or going up to the gate, Ryan's drawing 3, I expect him to. I think it's too late. That's just my opinion.
In-play betting's past my pay grade.
Yeah, but anyway, moving on, we'll keep it on. So breeding and yearling. So the breeding numbers, and we reported on the show last week, and I'd spoken to Gary Fry coming on to last week's show, because we threw a little new segment out last week, going, gone, and we sort of read out possible 10 free-for-allers, and there was only sort of one of them here at the moment, and that was sort of better have time. And that sort of, it works across the board. And the next topic we'll talk about owners and horse numbers. But Gary Fry, River Gum Lodge, and obviously you're a big part of that, Toby, with the veterinarian through the AI. Those numbers have significantly dropped off, and less than half of what they were 5 years ago. It's very concerning. And just tell us a little bit about that, and where you see it for not only the industry, but someone like yourself and the Gary Fryers. It's not only the us trainers and owners, it's the farriers, it's the vets, it's the fodder stores, it's all that get affected by these horse numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has caved in, the numbers, and and look, I'm not worried about it from a selfish perspective. It's helped my lifestyle. But reality is our industry needs people to be feeling okay about breeding again.
Yeah.
So we touched on it a moment ago. Young horses that you breed have to start out with a more applicable national rating.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to get some breeding incentives to going again. I mean, for some reasons, the Samos scheme got axed, but it actually was helping. We were getting a few extra mares through that. It needed tweaking. There were some flaws in it. So, but through learning from mistakes, which is life, we can now come up with a better scheme for mare incentives and get some more people breeding again. There were some initiatives last season that helped the bottom end breeding. That's not right. We need to help breeding throughout all levels. In fact, with all due respect to the bottom end breeding part of the industry, not so many of them add to the racing population.
Yep.
It's the higher tier of breeding that is what adds to the racing population.
Yep.
It's a fact that if it's cost very little to breed a horse, it's more than likely to stand in a paddock more.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's cost you more to breed a horse, human nature is you're going to look after it, you're going to give it preps, you're going to get it going because you're going to want some return for your investment. So if there hasn't been an investment, it stands on the sow sobs. If you've paid a fortune to get it in your hands, you work it, see if you go and get it going, get it to the races.
Yeah.
So those sort of horses are in fact they have more chance to add to our racing population. That's leaving aside genetics alone, the difference in genetics, that's irrelevant. Just human mindset of how you approach a horse. Same applies at yearling sales. If you go and buy a horse at a yearling sale, it's more likely to see the racetrack because of races like the Orwood and because it's been an investment. It's more likely to see the racetrack than a homebred. So we can't just help the lower tier of breeding economics. We have to do more for the middle and upper echelon of breeding, and so that has to come back to some mare incentive schemes. Maybe we can look at slashing some of the costs that breeders have in terms of racing administration fees. There's fees there that maybe could fall over, given especially now that our numbers are smaller. The cost of administering the breeding season at an administration level should be less because the numbers are less. So, maybe that cost could disappear and help breeders. Who knows?
The number, and the Gary Fry numbers halved, and the number we said about last week, and we'll talk in a minute, has halved with horses somewhat in the state in a way. And I was talking to Jeff Easton only late last week as well, and probably one of the state's bigger breeders, gone from 20 last season. He said he had 19 live foals, and this year he'll foal down 9. So that in itself is a big concern, and he's been a big supporter of racing in South Australia for many years.
25 years ago, there was 13,000 foals bred in Australia. Now it's under 4, and falling every year. New Zealand got the same problem. The only positive I'll say about the national rating system is it does keep horses racing longer. And that's probably been the big positive. And some of these horses I mentioned before that have had 200 starts and 10 wins and are a 52 rating, well, they probably wouldn't have been around under the old system. So that is one of the positives of the national rating system.
And there is certainly positive in these, every topic we're talking about. It's trying to get together. That's what this is about, to start that process rolling. What does it look like? What is the vision of the state here? Not much you want to add on that, probably, from breeding and yearling sale perspective, or?
Yeah, look. Basically, I sort of think that the yearlings sort of decreased a little bit because of the national ratings as well. I was talking to Barry Rattray when I was in Tasmania not long ago when I was driving Ideal World, and he wasn't a fan on the national rating system, and basically because his 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds he was breeding weren't getting really a fair go. I know he was putting a lot of them out. If we had our own system, I think it would definitely help the local breeding industry as well. I think.
And you want to add on that? Move on.
Oh, it's just a national rating system. I'm going to take Dancing Finn, for example. I'm not exactly sure, but I reckon she's up to like a 57 or a 58 rating. That is just crazy. What a lovely horse. And when she comes back as a 3-year-old, she's some chance of being a 60 plus. Which is just horrendous.
With the extended 2-year-old season, she's
going
to come back.
Half back, but
but she could well win a Southern Cross, and
that's what I mean. It's
8 points.
All you want to do is you want to strive to get a nice horse.
And
that nice horse is going to be half their racing career.
Really pleased to see the yearling sales was announced this week as well. So that's one of the good things we've done in this state.
Yeah, and we continue, although somewhat numbers have been down a little bit, we continue to run it, and hopefully it can continue to build, So, and the bigger studs hopefully continue to support it. Ryan, we'll lead into you on the next one, owner and horse numbers, and this is around, last week we obviously, I said on the show, sort of counter between yourself, probably the state's biggest trainer for a long time now in horse numbers, and leading trainer, like, I talk on my stable as well. David, Harding, Danny, Jake numbers. I counted somewhat 87 down to about 44, just round terms in work currently. Now, yes, there's horses in the paddock, and we were talking on the weekend with horses currently out that will come back for the Southern Cross being later in the year. But the fact of the matter is, where somewhat you used to work probably 30 plus, you're down to somewhere around that 15 to 18 mark at the moment. And the fact of the matter is that 50% number that we're talking about.
Yeah, I haven't had a new horse. I've had a couple, probably more due to COVID rather than a new owner. So that was because of the borders. But I haven't had a new horse for like I said, 12 months, and really struggling to get them. And we're probably not far off putting a worker off, unfortunately, which is going to be a loss to the industry. But it is what it is, and it's a tough going.
Yeah, Toby raised off air as well, and we'll come back to it in a minute because I want to touch on the owner side with Paul Brumby. But you mentioned off air about would you increase if the horse were there, and you said yes. And if you could get owners, you get horses, would you increase back to your 30 and 35? And you say yes. I look at it from a perspective when you talk about workers going there. Is that another issue to restrain us from going back there? There's no way I'd be able to get back there without a worker or two. And how do you find them here, those people coming through that want to work and and also have that experience to work in this state? We've got to attract not only owners, horse numbers, but then the people to suffice that as well. I don't know, your thoughts on that?
And would it be hard to do a big team? It's been a while since I did a big team, but there was back in the day we did do our 25, 30, and even just 2 meetings a week means how do you spread your horses out a little bit, or all the logistics of even getting to the track.
Yeah.
We used to operate a 4-horse float and a 3-horse float, but just getting them there, the expenses associated with having extra vehicles or trucks or transportation, back to 2 meetings a week, trying to race a big team of horses in 2 meetings a week, getting them and doing them at the track, it's a very costly exercise.
Yeah, I remember one Southern Cross night, I reckon you had 15 or 16 one night.
There was a night. We had big numbers because all the heats and finals or consolations at the same night. But it's just the logistics of the fact we've got less races now. It makes it hard to do more horses as well.
Yeah. Ryan, on owners, and so Paul Brumby, obviously being close friend of yours, very a part of your a very big part of your success in recent years, and you said he hasn't probably bought a new horse for 12 months. You said, and finding it hard. Talk a little bit about that, but also on the back of that, and I'll then throw to you, Chris. How do we attract those owners or the owners to want to pick up the phone and say, Ryan, I've got a horse for you? Yeah. You're the leading trainer, have been for a number of years now, and not getting the phone calls you once were for people to send horses to.
I can't paint a nice picture, that's for sure. How can you?
Yeah.
Lost a horse last night due to, not be able to pay his way, and he's a lovely little horse. He's honest as the day is long, and he picks up a cheque more often than he doesn't. And the bloke said, money, he's not paying his way through the way the money structures and stuff like that. So, I can't paint a nice picture for anyone, unfortunately. It's very hard.
And Brumby, just talk. So you used to have a system that worked, and he's still looking, or just can't, or stopped looking, or looking for other states.
Really racking his brain, what to do next, sort of thing. Because those horses we can't win the races we used to, and finding it really hard to even find them. And then obviously, with the ones we got aren't doing a job, well then it puts you on the back pedal as well.
So back, say 2 years ago, back in Star Brutus and those times, how many horses did he own at the highest?
He had 8 or 10 at once.
And what's he got in work at the moment?
3, I think.
3. Yeah, and that's the scary reality that you got a hot guy that pays up for 10, and now paying up for 3. It's the cost of living and the expense as well. Chris,
it's difficult. I mean, the economic model of owning a horse and trying to make $1 out of it, we all know that just doesn't work, and it's always been a risk, but it's probably never been worse. So you've got to think of different ways, and things like you've done with the ABR 100 and 2.0, whatever. We had the Crow Syndicate that, Rosie, you had a couple of horses with at one stage. I know when we did Wayville, people like Paul Cav went along that night, people come up to him, said, I want to get a horse. And so from that, he's got 3 or 4 horses as a result, and new owners. I think we have to try a lot harder than what we ever used to do to get people. People aren't on the street. We're not relevant that much in the community anymore. They're not looking to own a horse, so we've got to find a way to get to them, unfortunately. And it's not easy.
Yeah. I think sort of people like local people in the industry, not so much sort of interstate owners and people like that, like local sort of trainers and drivers and it sounds maybe a little bit silly, like family friends and things like that, are sort of happy to go and buy a horse and spend some money. I had sort of interest in up to about sort of 4 horses there up until about sort of a couple of months ago, like myself personally. But just the way the stake money's going at the moment, it's sort of, like I said before, it's not sort of financially viable to really be owning one in the state and paying up for a horse, unfortunately.
Yeah. Any more to add on that before we move on?
I mean, it might be controversial, but I just wonder whether or not, like, you know, our state of affairs with stake money isn't going to attract horses here. So I wonder whether it's time to look at a racing condition that might actually attract horses here and follow the line of the US of A and look at perhaps introducing LASIX.
So we'll let Toby open up our next segment, and that is the positive comment. You know, or what can we change and to make this forward? We don't want to be doom and gloom, and we open the show with state of affairs with some very not negative or depressing sort of deflating comments. And so now to finish the show, how do we turn things around? And Toby, you had a great one, and like you just led into.
Look, it's only an idea, and it might not be the right thing to do, and it would need a lot of looking at and a lot of think tank operational. But we have a fair attrition from the sport because of exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhage, bleeding in simple terms, and so if we can keep horses racing more regularly and at the track for longer through assisting that problem. A local rule that isn't anywhere else in Australia might end up even attracting horses from other states to come here. So we might be able to expand our own racing population a little bit and help trainers add to their stables. From a punting perspective, it will create a greater consistency. It will mean there's a less of a gap between the trainers that have what we call good bleeder management programs versus the trainers that don't have a bleeder management program. So we're going to have, a more level playing field, a greater consistency to the punter. It's a very cheap thing. It's not an expensive exercise, and look, it'd have to be done properly, and there'd be a right way to do it. And I'm not even suggesting it's the right idea, but these are the sort of things we have to look at, because breeding takes too long to enhance our numbers quickly. But if we can get a few on the float coming over here from other states because of something like LASIX, then perhaps that's worth a shot at the stumps in the state we're in.
Toby, I was going to say just on LASIX, so it has been talked about before. I think it would be something that the controlling body should be involved with in terms of its control.
Absolutely,
I went to my last trip to America. I went to, I think, Del Mar, the races in San Diego, and got the race book, and it mentions whether the horse is on LASIX. So I went through the book. There was only one horse at the whole program that wasn't on LASIX. So it's very, very common over there. There are obviously the animal welfare side needs to be considered, but I think it's probably a positive more than a negative.
Yeah, I think it's from a welfare perspective, it's the lesser of two evils. Who wants to see a horse have pulmonary hemorrhage? But it's more about enabling horses to, race to their level more frequently, more often, and for more starts.
A point of difference for SA.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's something from left of field, and it's something we seriously have to consider, because prize money is not going to attract horses, and we need to do something to attract horses. And the ratio of horses that would be bleeding, not outwardly but inwardly when we don't even know, would be huge. It's got to be seriously considered.
Yep. Wayne, anything that on
Yeah,
that?
100% agree. We just need something that basically sort of attracts more owners to the state, and if something like that would work, well, I think it's definitely something we have to look at.
Now, Chris, I want to throw to you for your positive change or comment for where we could go.
Well, I said before, I think with the amount of money HRSA get in, they do a pretty good job of trying to spread it around. We need to grow the pie. And the only way to grow the pie, other than more wagering, is trying to get our hands on some more of this place of consumption tax. So that was brought in a bit over a year ago. We're the first state to do it. We've got the highest tax rate in Australia of 15%. But in every other jurisdiction, they've been able to secure a fair refund of that place of consumption tax back to the industry. In South Australia, we're getting around 10% of that tax. In every other state, the worst state is 30%, and some are as high as 50%. So every state's got different funding models. But really, if my message to George, really, as chairman, is I've been in that role, there's a lot of things to consider and a lot of competing priorities. We need more money out of basic consumption tax. And if he was successful in doing that, I'd say that's the biggest thing that he could do for the industry. And that's really a thing that he needs to unite with the other two codes as well, to put pressure on the government. But that tax has delivered far more than what they ever thought it would. It was Labor's idea, but Liberal are in government now and they need to do something about it.
No, good point. Ryan, to you. No, it's a positive comment. Positive. How can we move forward as an industry? I can throw it away if you want.
Yeah,
go away. And you want a minute to think about it.
Look, basically something that differs us from other states, whether a bit what Toby's suggesting, some LASIX model or a new national rating system that sort of helps the horses in this state. Basically, we need something that differs from other states to attract horses here, get the horse population up, and hopefully wagering increases, and hopefully then that follows a stake money increase as well. So yeah, something along those lines I think we need to try and do, and instead of talking about it, I think we need to sort of act on it and just try something. I'd rather to have tried something and failed than to try nothing at all, because at the moment sort of things are just on a downward spiral in my opinion.
And I think on the back of that, I'll just jump in. I think communication is the biggest thing. There's supposedly a 5-year plan coming. I think it's time now to communicate. We mentioned that on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I think George may well join us on the show in the next week or two, and we look forward to him joining us to discuss these same topics. It'll be really interesting to sit down with him, and to get his response on some of this stuff as well. But the communication thing, there's a 5-year plan. Let's put a plan in place that sees us move forward and know what we're all working to. We're all in this together, right? No one's jumping off the ship. We're all trying to do different things. You said it before. We're not here trying to make $1 million. We're here just trying to survive, right? We do it because we love it in SA, and that's what all of us have come together here tonight to try and get our message across an industry. So let's pull together. Let's have that 5-year plan that we're all working to, whether as an owner, a driver, a trainer-driver, a vet, a trainer, an owner, trainer, myself. How does that look to attract more people to the state? Ryan, what's your...
Look, from a personal level, the national rating has declined my business. If we could possibly do away with it and come up with something that works for all of us, that would be a positive for me.
And I know you and I were actually were in the room that night when they talked about the national rating system, and somewhat I still believe there had to be 8 winners at each program and that, but it's how that's spread, and I think it's sooner rather than later we've got to look at that SA model, to be now like, and we said earlier on the show, to be like your WA, your Queensland and New South Wales. They're flying, they're going.
It's supposed to be national. They should change the national rating, not to national rating.
It's a Victorian rating
exactly.
system. Yeah.
Queensland have brought their own thing in. Perth have never ever brought it in. They're win dollars only.
And Tassie are now 30 to 75 when you nominate, then they make a race up out of it.
Race, and they've got the luxury of doing that. I was having a look at that myself. One of the races was like a 60 or 63. Well, we can't do that. Ours span from like a 65 to an 80, if you're lucky.
And you talk about the rating system before, and we've got to wrap up, but you said about a 55. I had a 55 mare. It's too hard in that. You do get locked, and we made the decision to send it to Tasmania because you're racing for $8,900. I've got 4 horses down there this weekend, between them racing for $36,000 on Sunday night, and I'll be sitting at home on a couch having a beer in one hand and a packet of chips in the other, watching them, and they wouldn't win $5,000 in there. They won't win Sunday, but they'll do a good job over the next 6 months, Before we wrap up, I'm going to wrap up I'm going to hit you with 5 questions, yes or no, 1-word answers. We'll go around the table. So we are here tonight at the Gawler and Barossa Jockey Club, okay, and it's been much heat over the last 12 or 18 months. So just quickly, first topic, dual code meeting on the grass, yes or no?
No.
No?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, all right, 4-1 vote there. Okay, well, that's all right. We won't go into any detail, but we'll let you say no. SA system, I think there's going to be 5 yeses. We need SA system.
Yeah. 110%.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, all right, there's 5 yeses there. Drivers' colours, this will be a good one. Drivers' colours or owners' colours?
I'm happy with drivers.
Drivers?
Extra load of washing, no good.
Toby?
Let people wear what they want.
What do they want? That's an interesting one. Ryan, you're saying owners?
Yeah, I'm an owner.
Yeah, I'm an owner. All right, we're 4-1 there as well. There's a bit of heat on you. That's all right. Wayville, good or bad?
Good once, probably not again.
Bad twice, right?
Yeah, I agree. Good
once,
once.
bad twice.
Yeah, agree. Not again.
Oh, I loved it.
Loved it. Only because you saluted down the front straight through.
Is electric. You can't. I've never driven like that ever.
Yeah.
The first one was probably better than the second one.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Good once, bad twice, right? That'll lead into our last question, smaller tracks, 1,000 or 800?
1,000 is
1,000, no sprint lane.
1,000, no sprint lane.
900.
900. He likes me different. He loves it. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. It has been a great little show tonight. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I was looking forward to it. Thanks for all coming in and spending time. It's no doubt we'll get plenty of traction behind this. Hopefully there'll be plenty of comments, and we look forward to that. But thanks, viewers. Hopefully drop your comments on if you've got any questions for George. He's going to join us hopefully to respond to a lot of these topics in the next coming couple of weeks. We certainly look forward to hopefully getting some traction, this being the start of where we want to see racing in SA. We're here because we love it. I think you all agree. Thanks, guys, for joining us. And thank you to our sponsors as well, the Gawler Harness Racing Club and the Kapunda Harness Racing Club, that bring us this show week in and week out. Thanks, viewers.